We will see now the category by Professor Dave proposed for the stages of one by one to acquire the skill. The first is the imitation. And in this imitation, what happens actually, when somebody is learning any skill, we will take a simple example of somebody is interested in learning a harmonium. At that time, the first the students, they look towards is how the excellent, who is very prominent in that, the performing, and imitation is done. When the learner is exposed to an observable actions, he begins or she begins to imitate that action. They observe it very well, and then imitation is taking place. The performance, however, lacks neuromuscular coordination at the initial stage, and then the control and hence is generally in a crude form. It is in a very, not in a very pattern form. This is at this first stage, these things has been happen. Now, any skill, when somebody want to learn, at that time, at the imitation stage, what happens? The learner observe the actions, imit that actions, but that actions are not very proper. Then in the second stage, what happens after the imitation? Manipulation stage occurs. And in this manipulation stage, the emphasis is the development of the skill in very proper direction. The learner is at this stage capable of performing and act according to the instructions rather than just on the basis of observation. Somebody is instructing, now you take your hand like this, your fingers like this, that instructions are given somebody else. Not only imitation and observation, because in this stage it is little bit ahead of the imitation and it is specific pattern is taking place there. And at the imitation stage, whatever may be the skill is performed. In the manipulation stage, the pattern is, it is try to develop a pattern of doing the things. And the manipulation stage plays a very important role to set a pattern or fairly well perform is performed in the manipulation stage. After that, the precision stage plays a very important role in the learning process of any skill. This is the third stage. In this stage, the proficiency of performance reaches a higher level of the refinement in the reproduction of a given act. Whatever may be the performance the learner want to do at that time or perform, at that time the imitation, and then imitation, afterwards imitation, we see the second stage, the pattern is staged in the second stage, and then in precision lot of mistakes are avoided here. And then the learner trying to do the action on his own independently. That is very, and when the learner feels that I am doing these things on my own, at that level the confidence is taking place very well and level of confidence is raised. The learners independently does the action. This is the important one of the indicator in this stage. Also he or she shows a confidence in doing the action, and he can speedily do the things, and mistakes are avoided here. The next stage is very important, that is the articulation. This stage emphasizes the coordination of the series of acts by establishing the appropriate sequence of the actions. In the first stage, the learner, for the skill development, any skill he look, that means observe and try to imitate, try to do according to that. In the second stage, they try to set a pattern. In the third stage, one action is performed very confidently by avoiding the mistakes. But in articulation stage, what happens actually, there are like this, while doing any skill, lot of things are done. Not only one action, there are number of actions to be done. We will take a simple example of computer typing. In the computer typing, the looking towards the letters on the keyboard and whether according to that it has been appeared and the proper word is there on the screen or not, at the learning stage they looked here. That means here the right hand action, then fingers action, left hand action, then fingers action, eye, hand, lot many actions are there. Here in articulation what happens interestingly, when in the last stage, the precision stage, the proper actions is done of a one action, here number of actions are properly done very interestingly and very properly. This is the combination of actions very properly done without mistakes, sequentially done to perform any skill. And harmonious action, that means joining of so many actions very properly is performed in this articulation stage. After the articulation what happens actually, the naturalization stage is the last stage, where the skill attains at a higher level of the proficiency. The act is performed with the least expenditure of energy, because the performer did not need to think too much. In the previous stages, whether I am doing a mistake or not, whether I am doing properly or not, whatever may be that I have to do, whether it is performed very well or not, this thinking is there. But once the neuromuscular combination is properly done, the neurons and the actions, they are set. At that time, this type of thinking is not taken place. The automaticity, the atomic action is taken place, and that is why the naturalization stage takes place. We will see some examples regarding that. Now, who had a good practice and covered all these last stages, what happens actually, the computer operator never look towards the keyboard. The actions and of the hands are due to practice. They know where and what time, what key to be pushed, and according to that the naturality and atomicity is taking place. We will take the lot of examples of the dance who perform very well. In sports, they naturally performance very well. In the weaving of anything, at the initial stage we know some people has to show the how to weave, or there are some videos also available on the now in the digital age, they can look into, and according to that the needle and thread, lot of efforts has to be taken at this stage. And but when the naturalization stage comes, the weaving takes place very easily, because need to think too much over it, and by this way the naturalization stage takes place. If you take the example of playing a cricket, at that time the performing a skill is very important. When the batsman is batting, at that time the bowler bowls the ball and he never thinks of it, he observes the ball and according to that performs and struck the ball. Like that, there is no thinking, and proper actions are taken place there. This stage is the final stage where the skill development stage is reached at the proficiency level, where we say that the naturalization is taking place. Now, these stages has to consider while the teaching learning process of skill development. Then to achieve any proficiency in any skill is our objective. According to that, what type of methodology to be adopted, whether to part to whole or whole to part, to see the methods to be adapted for teaching the skill. Demonstration methods are very prominently used in this line, and the which type of skill to be developed according to that content is fixed. Then when this type of practice is done, demonstration is done, teaching learning process of skill development is completed, then we go for the actually collecting the evidences whether the skill at a proficiency level achieved or not. And according to that, observations and so many other techniques are used whether the skill is developed through this, and then we confirm that the skill is developed, the proficiency is very high, there is no mistakes, 100% correctness is there, and then the things are done minimum time, very less time, but the performance is very high, the correctness is very high, and at that time we say that the student or the learner have achieved the naturalization or atomicity in this process. And this is the process, educational process adapted for skill development. I hope you had understood the educational process of developing the skill. Thank you.